and welcome to the Cowboy Chronicles, the Oklahoman's Oklahoma State football podcast. I am your host, Scott Wright, joined this week as in the final week of the season by Marshall Scott from PFB. Thank you again, Marshall. I've lost track how many times you've been on here.
I think this is, depending on the lost episode,
Right.
3 or 4, I think.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. It's been a tricky season.
Yeah.
Without me having Jacob here to anchor down that second spot. Been having to rotate a little bit, but you've been a champ and stepped in multiple times for me. Much appreciated.
I was thinking about this walking into Gundy today, is that you always come and ask so politely. And the question is, do you want to drink a beer and talk about sports? And I'm like, well, yes. Yes, I do. Yeah, I would love to do that. Yeah, and then it feels so crazy. Every time somebody says, well, this is the last week of the season, that hasn't hit me yet because it's been so long since we've been done. I've never been covered a team that's done it in November, so yeah, it feels super weird that this is it.
Yes, exactly. It absolutely is, and I haven't really wrapped my mind around what I'm going to do for December, other than basketball and wrestling.
Transfer portal. That's probably
portal,
the answer of what we'll actually all do.
A lot of that going on, but you always had the other stuff where you had to come back and write about the actual team, and that's not going to be the case this week. Unless something crazy happens next week and I'm able to do a podcast with someone somewhere. Otherwise, this will be the last one. Maybe get a little bit of recruiting update, but I don't know that the schedule is going to allow that next week with the way everything is so rapid.
Yeah.
Honestly, you could record a podcast on December 4th, and by December 6th, it's mostly obsolete.
Or later December 4th, it could be obsolete at this point. Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. So, but we'll talk a little bit about this ball game coming up, the last one that we just covered. Maybe we'll get into some recruiting. I don't know. We'll see. And we'll do all of that, of course, if you want to, even though there's not a podcast for sure next week, you want to throw in a score prediction for OSU Colorado, feel free, jump in there on YouTube and drop it in the comments. And I'll just buy you a beer and I'll drink it, and I'll enjoy it greatly for you. With that, let's jump right in. Let's look back at last week, and let's start with the one really positive thing that came out of the Texas Tech loss. The offense scored 48 points, and that was with Maealiuaki Smith at quarterback. Just your top line thoughts of hold on, we're at Stone Cloud. We have to start. I apologize. I apologize. What are you drinking today?
I just keep going back to the Stone Cloud Light every time. It's been good to me, so I just keep going back.
Always good and reliable. I went to another of my favorites from here because I don't know when I'll be back. Chug Norris, one of their regulars. That's always a fantastic beer. So really look forward. And I went with the big one today. Mm-hmm. Really excited about where this is going. But Maealiuaki Smith. Yeah,
it was everything I think an Oklahoma State fan could have hoped for it to be. You would have loved to win, but just to have some sort of hope going forward. He looked really good. His arm looked lively. He was making reads. That touchdown pass to Dejon Stribling. Stribling said he thinks he was the last read on that entire play. And even more impressive than that is you're in the red zone, so everything's a little tight. Mm-hmm. So those reads have to be worked through rather quickly. So I think that was really good. There was a slant he threw to Rashad Owens late. That was in a tight window. I think it went for like 30 yards. I was really impressed with that throw. So the throws were good. The offense was an offense. I'm battling trying not to get too hyperbolic because the Tech defense is not an elite defense that we'll be seeing. And it's just been so long since we've seen an offense with life. So I'm trying not to get too hyperbolic. But man, everything looked really good. Maealiuaki Smith looked really good. I think it's everything Oklahoma State fans could have hoped for. Maybe, obviously, they probably hoped for it a little bit sooner, given he could have played 4 games and redshirted. But I think everybody's a little bit more excited after allowing Texas Tech to score 56 points, which sounds weird, than they would have been, otherwise. So I think overall, positive day for Oklahoma State.
I think one thing that stood out to me, you mentioned that slant to Owens. It seemed like there was like 3 guys that had a chance to knock that thing out of the air. It was a really tight window that he had to hit with that one. The Stribling throw was similar on the touchdown, and Stribling was so excited about it that he just punted the ball into the.
That was awesome.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
He says it'll never happen again, but
I
can always hold out.
I was sure, because of how quick he just instantly punted that ball, I was sure he got that okay. He said, hey, it's senior night. can I do something crazy if I score? I was sure, and then he was like, yeah, I asked him about it post game, and he was like, that will never happen again. So it didn't seem like that was an okay thing. But
yes.
I think the Tech still got the ball in like the 30. It could have been worse.
Oh, absolutely.
Afterwards, so
yeah.
not that bad.
Not horrible. So, but the thing that stood out to me before we got downstairs and started talking to Gundy and the players, they all pointed to how calm Smith was, on the sidelines, on the field, whatever it was. The thing that stood out to me before that was how smooth he looks.
Yeah.
Just a very natural athlete. A very effortless delivery of the football. We saw him run. I hadn't really ever heard anybody talk about him being just crazy fast, but he a smooth runner. Got out of the outside the tackle and was able to go and run and make the play for the touchdown. That was the thing that obviously seeing him in for an extended period of time that really stood out to me. But then hearing everybody talk about how calm he is, there are times that a player just kind of has, whatever you want to call it, the it factor, whatever it is, and this might be us seeing the beginning of that. It's hard to say because, like you said, Texas Tech, worst passing defense, worst scoring defense in the Big 12. He had 2 weeks to lead up to it. It couldn't have been a much better situation, short of it being Wofford in the first game when he's had an entire offseason to prepare for it. But given the situation, it was a great opportunity, great setup, really good for him. But he took advantage of the opportunity, and I think that was the thing that was most important.
Yeah, and you mentioned his running ability. He's not going to Lamar Jackson you or anything like that, but it was enough seemingly to open up the rest of Oklahoma State's run game. Ollie Gordon goes off.
Right.
Both outside receivers. This was the first time that, and it's a little disjointed because Rashad Owens wasn't playing a ton last year when Dejon Stribling was playing. But this is the first time that both guys have had 100 yards in a game.
Right.
And it's just like, and then Brendan Presley has 10 catches. Ollie goes off. It's like, oh, this is what the offense all year was supposed to look, what everybody thought this offense was going to look like.
Yeah.
It finally showed up. I don't know if it's better late than never at this point, because I guess at this point, who really cares what happens these next 2 weeks? But but it was just nice to see that we weren't all crazy, and we thought, hey, this offense has got a shot to roll back in August whenever we were all thinking about what was going to happen. So it just seemed like he unlocked so much. But yeah, again, trying not to get too hyperbolic, but man, watching offensive football, I read about this in 10 Thoughts. The Big 12 used to get dunked on for not having any defenses. Yeah. Well, if my options are watching whatever OSU football has been this season or ridiculous shootouts, give me the video game numbers every single day of the week. So it was just a lot more enjoyable viewing experience than what it has been.
Yeah, it was really cool. We all assumed that this was Ollie Gordon's going away party. Last game at BPS. Really cool to get to see him have kind of the type of performance that we expect from him. In his last game, had the big run, our longest run of the year, 68 yards. Just sort of the appropriate salute to what we all assume is his last game in Stillwater.
Yeah, and it would have stunk for him to totally go out on just a whimper of a season, considering how good he was last year. And he's able to kind of get that stride that we saw so much of last year on that 68-yard run. Just watching him run in free space is so much fun, and we've kind of been deprived of that throughout this year. I think everybody in the stadium knew that guy was going to go at his legs because he wasn't big enough to hit Ollie up top. Right. So he almost, it wasn't necessarily a hurdle as much as he just kind of skipped over that guy and kept going.
Yeah.
The offense was just, it had so much life breathed into it, seemingly off of one change. That being at quarterback. Maybe Tech's defense also played a big role in that, but it was just so much better to watch than it had been.
It was really almost kind of a Euro step. He just kind of Euro stepped right over the guy and kept on going. Never slowed down. While we're on, Ollie and there were two other juniors that went through the senior day festivities. Dejon Stribling was asked about it and said, "Well, I'm a senior. I'm graduating in December. Felt like I should go." Wouldn't hesitate, or he hesitated. Wouldn't say for sure if it was officially his last game at OSU or not. Didn't he? And when he was asked if he was going to, have a decision to make, didn't really address that either. And then Nick Martin, we obviously don't get to talk to because he's injured. He also took part. I feel pretty strongly that he's probably going. He might be he and Ollie might be the top two guys off the board from this team in the NFL draft. But where do you stand on those three guys? I'll throw in Kendall Daniels as well, though he didn't go through senior day and was pretty confident that he'll be back next year when asked about it. But where do you stand on the juniors?
Yeah, I think Stribling is a pro. I don't like just having watched him, but I wonder what his draft stock is like because OSU's offense has not been good this year, so I don't know how much tape he's necessarily got. So I like whether it is at Oklahoma State next season, whether it's somewhere else. I think him being in a competent offense for a year, I think his draft stock could soar just because any chance that he does get, he's been so electric. Like, as you mentioned, he wasn't really getting on the topic. He did really seem to like Maealiuaki Smith. So like, not saying if maybe if Smith's the quarterback, that seems like a weird game to play whenever it's a senior and a true freshman that's played just one game. But maybe there's an in there for him. But yeah, I think we're sort of discussing this in the press box of like who are guys that Oklahoma State's really going to be hankering to try to bring back. You got to imagine Dejon Stribling's among the top of that list if he's not going to the NFL to try and keep it. If he's going to play college ball next year, if you're Oklahoma State, you got to imagine you want that being at Oklahoma State. As for Nick Martin, tough to say. I don't know what the NFL will think about his size. I imagine if he's not ready for the NFL per the NFL, that there's going to be a lot of interest in him throughout the portal as far as money goes and stuff like that, just with his speed, with his ability. But yeah, having not been able to talk to him in quite a while since his injury, it's tough to say really where he's leaning. And I imagine Kendall Daniels not going through senior day probably said where he's where he's at for going into next year.
I'm with you on Stribling. Nick Martin, I really feel like his speed and tackling ability are going to erase the fears about the fact that he's, I don't know, is he 6 feet? Maybe. He's right at it. And he's bulky enough to hold his own. Obviously, you would love it if he was 6'2", but he's not. But I think that his speed is going to give him the opportunity to be high on the draft board of somebody somewhere and get an opportunity.
And I think Nick Martin's awesome. I'm not sure what the NFL thinks.
But
yeah,
exactly.
it only takes one team to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And he's really had a good year and a half, really, of college ball, and coming off a knee injury, you don't know how people are going to view that, what their medical teams find, and what kind of shape Nick will be in, if he gets invited to the combine or pro day, whatever it might be. So, as a pro prospect, I feel like, and I feel weird saying this, I feel like he's got better potential for a higher draft spot than a Colin Oliver.
I can see that. I think I can see that.
Because there's just too many questions about Colin as far as where he fits at the next level.
Yeah, there's almost become questions just within the last 2 years of where he fits at the college level. Is he an edge rusher? I think Oklahoma State settled on him being an edge rusher, but then he gets hurt, so that's obviously a tough way for that to happen. But yeah, I think that's. But at the same time, I think maybe Stribling, as a pro prospect, maybe has a higher ceiling in terms of what scouts are looking for and stuff like that than both of those two guys. But he's just been hampered with an offense that hasn't been able to move the ball all season. I fully agree, because he's the guy that does have the pro body, the size, the speed, the hands. There was a catch he made on Saturday that I sometimes I get a little loud in the press box. I'm like, oh, that's a pick, and he cuts in front and reaches out and grabs it. And I still don't know how he did it. Yeah, there was a hitch route that he ran in the second half of TCU that I was just enamored by, and it went for 7 yards or whatever it went for. But the DB had no clue where he was going, and it's just it was like one of the most simple routes in football that he just ran so well.
Exactly.
So, I've been really high on Stribling. It was cool to kind of see him have the opportunity to go off the way that he did on Saturday.
Yep, agreed. All right, let's move ahead to on the topic of NFL prospects. Going to see a couple of them against the Cowboys this week. Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter. I'm going to start right here because I was thinking about this the other day. Good chance Travis Hunter wins the Heisman this year. At least it's looking that way right now, based on the odds makers. I went back and counted. I think there were 3 Heisman winners that four Heisman winners that I've seen play in the year that they won the Heisman. Saw Caleb Williams at OU before he won it. Not in his his Heisman year, but have you covered a game with a Heisman winner before?
Let's see. Well, it would have been the Baker
Mayfield,
year,
Kyler Murray
year.
Right.
I'm trying to think outside of that.
That was that's based on my career. I'm going to guess that's your list right there.
Yeah, I think so. Because before that, Big 12 guys, you're thinking like RG3.
RG3 was before you, right?
Yeah. So I think it was just Baker and Kyler, which
right.
I grew up not liking OU very much, but both those guys, phenomenal college players. So and there's a chance if Travis Hunter doesn't win it, maybe Shedeur Sanders should win it. So
right,
it
exactly.
feels like they may be deficient elsewhere, Colorado, but they've got the star power to match anybody in the country.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously my career has been weird. I had a chunk in the middle where I did high school sports when my son was young, but before that, I covered the Bedlam game here when Sam Bradford had the flip that game in his Heisman year, and then I had a really weird opportunity where I got sent to cover the Cotton Bowl when it was a playoff game between Alabama and Michigan, when Derrick Henry was on his way to the Heisman for Alabama. And the best part of that was that I was just writing a game story. And so they offered it like last 5 minutes you can go down. I didn't have to file a story like I do now as soon as the game ended. I was just collecting and then writing later. So I went down on the field for the last 5 minutes, and I go out there as they're doing the trophy ceremony, and in the scrum of everybody end up standing directly behind Derrick Henry. And you could have convinced me he was 6'7". He was just massive, a massive human.
It's sort of the revolution of the running back is sort of coming back. We're getting off topic at this point, but with what Derrick Henry's doing with the Ravens, we're going to watch that tonight. Saquon Barkley's going crazy for the Eagles. The Giants look really stupid right now. He's awesome. I don't know, Ollie's gotten a lot of Derrick Henry comps just because of their size, but I've never seen Derrick Henry up close. But just looking on TV, he looks bigger than what I think at least Ollie Gordon.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, I would agree. I think Ollie's going to have a great future, but he's not Derrick Henry in terms of size.
Not many are.
Exactly.
In Ollie's defense.
The fact that he can do the things he's doing, and I mean, we've seen he's had some long runs this year. Talking about Derrick Henry. Still blows my mind.
Similarly to Ollie, whenever he gets out in space, nobody's really tackling him up high either. So.
Yeah, exactly. But looking at this game, the Colorado defense numbers-wise is better than Texas Tech. Kansas seemed to be able to kind of do what they wanted, and obviously they were a team that I thought was going to have a chance to contend for the Big 12 title. But that's a long list of teams, and most of them are at the bottom of the league now. So I don't know what to think of Colorado's defense based on that, but I certainly think that Oklahoma State could have some semblance of success if they play the way that they did on Saturday.
Yeah, I think if you're Oklahoma State, your best bet is probably another shootout, just because your defense probably isn't stopping the Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders combo. But yeah, similarly, if they can find a way to move, if Maealiuaki Smith and this offense is all of a sudden unleashed and unlocked and looks like what everybody thought it was going into the year, then maybe you've got a puncher's chance in this game. But yeah, it's just so tough to bet on Oklahoma State's defense right now with how poor that side of the ball has been. The first drive against Texas Tech was like Texas Tech was working on air, unfortunately for the Cowboys. And then just any time Tech needed some points, they were more than happy to oblige. So I think if you're Oklahoma State, you're hoping for a shootout, because if it's not, things are probably not going to go very well.
Quick question back to Tech, because you brought up OSU's defense early. After the second drive, it's 14-0 after Tech's second drive. What did you think the final score was going to be at that point?
I thought it was going to be maybe, because surely Tech would have had to just slow down to kill the clock at some point. But it was, because that series is no stranger to people scoring a lot of points.
Right.
So I was worrying 70 was going to get talked about at least. And I guess, honestly, things didn't finish too far off that.
Right.
I think they got 4 stops in a row, somewhat I'm still not totally sure how that happened.
Right.
But yeah, those stops were much needed and kind of the only reason that Oklahoma State was even in the game. But yeah, there early, I was like, oh boy, I'm going to be done with what I've got to write by halftime.
Right.
And then nobody's going to be very happy whenever we go back down into the team room for interviews. So yeah, it looked like it was going to get really, really ugly. And it turns out it was just ugly defense on both sides towards the end.
Yeah, at that point, if you had told me 56-14, I would have believed you at that point, no doubt. But back to Colorado, looking at their offense. Obviously, OSU played a lot of teams that focused on the run for a stretch where they couldn't stop anybody who was running the ball. Now they've seen some throwing quarterbacks and they've had success too. So obviously, it's not like theirs is really a strength of this defense. But Tech threw the ball more than I think we really anticipated.
Yeah, I think Taj Brooks had 3 carries on those first 2 drives.
Right.
So I was like, well, this is just, they haven't even turned around and started handing the ball off yet. So, yeah.
And that's what made me feel like it was going to get horrible, because once they started handing it to him, you thought it was going to just be downhill all the way. But the thing I was going to was I'm curious to see what Colorado tries to do. Will they try to run it because Oklahoma State's been so bad against the run, or do they just go run their offense?
Yeah.
Which with their receivers, that's a really, and Sanders obviously at quarterback, is a really potent attack, and it feels like they could probably just pick and choose whatever they want to do at this point.
Yeah, and it's tough because I don't know that it matters what they do. They're probably going to succeed at it offensively just because, like, Oklahoma State not very good at stopping the run. I don't think Tech's run game has been, or not Tech's, Colorado's run game has been spectacular to this point in the season, but that hasn't really mattered whenever you're going against Oklahoma State's defense. So yeah, I bet they'll probably just run their offense and just sling the pill around the yard with Shooter Sanders. But if that ever doesn't work for 2 series in a row or something, I think they'll have find plenty of success turning around, handing the ball off, just because that's where Oklahoma State's defense is at right now, unfortunately.
Right. Real quickly before we get to the Stone Cloud 6-pack, let's go ahead and focus on recruiting just a bit. I think this, in terms of the high school class, mostly done. You might see a couple of changes over the next week before they sign on the 4th. I would say this is kind of what I would describe as a typical Mike Gundy recruiting class.
Yeah.
Fair?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're still working on 1 or 2 guys. They had an offensive lineman in from Utah that I saw at the wrestling duel on Friday. They just offered a Tulsa decommit cornerback. He had some pretty good offers, but he was also committed to Tulsa at one point. So yeah, it's a pretty standard Mike Gundy class. I think they've got some receivers that I think they really like in there. Jet Niu, the quarterback. Quarterbacks always are going to kind of steal some headlines, but he had a really good, strong close to the year. He took Corner Canyon in Utah to the brink. Oh, he didn't play at Corner Canyon. He played at Lehigh, but
right.
Corner Canyon's like a power in Utah,
yeah.
and he took them right to the end. Not basically by himself, but his stats were ridiculous in that game. So.
And that was a semifinal game, right?
Yeah. So I think even you look at him, he was a former App State commit, so maybe you're like, well, this is typical Gundy stuff. But I think if he's doing that, he's probably got some gusto to him. So I'm not a very sexy, flashy class, but I think your stereotypical standard Mike Gundy. We're gonna take some Oklahoma kids late. Gonna not get in a ton of recruiting battles, but just gonna kind of take the kids that want to be at Oklahoma State. So yeah, I think it's just, like you said, standard Mike Gundy recruiting. Yeah. It's worked for 20 years. You could question, whether this year is a result of it not working in terms of depth-wise. But it's hard to knock it too hard because, again, that 18-year bowl streak did exist.
Yeah. I think we would probably both agree that the most important recruiting in terms of next year is all going to happen in the portal after December 9th, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely, because I'm trying to think of, and this is no offense to those freshmen, it's just like, it feels like the timetable sort of got accelerated. If this year happened next year, I think people would be freaking out to a certain extent, but it wouldn't be too crazy because next year's team was going to lose all these offensive linemen, Alan Bowman, Ollie Gordon. So I think things have kind of ramped up maybe a little bit in terms of, okay, we can't just use next season as the down year that the program's got. We kind of got to inject some new life into this. So yeah, I think you need to go in and get offensive linemen. I think you need to go in and get defensive linemen. Who knows what your receiver room totally looks like? I'm pretty high on Talon Shetron. If they can get Dejon Stribling back, that's obviously really good. I think they're going to have 2 slot guys in Lofton and Gavin Freeman. But maybe there's a guy or 2 there that you want to look at.
Right.
And then, honestly, defensively, it's like I think everything is on the table in terms of, I think everybody's job is to a certain extent up for grabs defensively. Right. So if you need to bring in a bunch of guys defensively, I think especially on the line, I think Oklahoma State's goal in the portal should be both lines of scrimmage and then kind of work out from there. I think seemingly hitting on Smith maybe helps you in that. You've got Rodney Fields, you've got Maealiuaki Smith. You feel somewhat comfortable with that. I imagine you're going to have to pay those guys to keep them around, but it might not be as much as if you're going and trying to pay a quarterback who just had a really good season at some other school to come in. So maybe with money that you were going to put towards a quarterback, towards a running back, maybe you can kind of funnel those resources into offensive line, into defensive line. I think that's probably where Oklahoma State should go, but who knows? Who knows? Feels like it's going to be a crazy, crazy month of December.
Right. And the weird factor in all of this is that I learned in the first year or 2 of the transfer portal not to try to predict who's going to stay and who's going to go, because you have no idea what's pulling it at different guys. Seeing guys who walked away from what I thought was a guaranteed starting job, or maybe they already had a starting job. It was weird to me, and so I've just stopped trying to predict what's going to happen in terms of guys that want to leave. Last thing on that topic, though, Mike Gundy we talked a lot about quarterbacks today when we visited with him.
Yeah.
He's, whether it's just lip service or whatever, seemed very confident that he's going to have Maealiuaki Smith, Zane Flores, and Garrett Rangel still in the program in spring for a big 3-man quarterback battle.
Yeah, I think that's exciting to a certain extent, and maybe worrying to another extent, to where we just saw a 3-quarterback rotation not too long ago, and that was not fun. And it doesn't really, I don't know that if all these guys came back that it would be any different. I think Mike Gundy would still be like, hey, these guys are going to compete. And then it's just like, wait, is this paradox shifted and everything is going on again? I think there's, Maealiuaki Smith, everybody was super impressed with. So I think that's good. The BYU game, everybody was super impressed with what Garrett Rangel was able to do. I think some of his throws were a little off that game, sailed an interception, and that first pass to Sezi Galahi was not good. But he did enough to get the offense moving, which was all everybody needed to see. And then on top of that, Zane Flores was the most hyped person. Yes. I don't know. I think in the program they're pretty excited about him, but as far as outside of the program, fans and stuff like that, we're most excited about Zane Flores.
Exactly.
So maybe there's a thought that if this is a 3-quarterback rotation, maybe it's more like the JW Clint Shelf West Lunt, and less like the Alan Bowman, Gunnar Gundy, young Garrett Rangel.
Right.
So yes. I guess that's probably the hope. And then Mike Gundy saying that again. Who knows really what happens in December? Right. If one of those guys feels they're on the outs, maybe they're out of there.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see. I don't know. I have no idea what to predict, but it feels to me like any of those 3 guys would have reason to believe they've got a shot at winning the job.
Yeah, that's like a crazy spot to be in college football, just based on the portal and quarterbacks in the portal in particular.
Right.
It was crazy going into this year that Oklahoma State had the quarterback depth that it did.
Yes.
And obviously that depth got thinned in a weird way in which your starters stayed healthy, but your 2 backups didn't, and then you're playing a freshman, so it got funky. But the depth that they came in with the year was pretty interesting. So it seems it's a super interesting dynamic kind of going into next season where Gundy's typically gone with the older guy, so Garrett's got that, and he's got the most experience of them all. And then Maealiuaki's maybe looked the best in a game between those 3, and then like we said, Zane was the most intriguing going into the year. So it's like, is he the best guy there that we just haven't seen yet? I don't know. Right. It's a super interesting dynamic.
Absolutely is, and going to make spring really interesting around here, and everything between now and spring. So, all right. Well, with that, let's jump into the Stone Cloud 6-pack, the last Stone Cloud 6-pack of the season, and we're going to start at quarterback. First pick on the over/under list. Over or under 250 passing yards for Maealiuaki Smith this week?
I think I'm going to go over.
All right.
I think Colorado will probably lean heavy in the we'll see if that was a fluke department. I think they're probably going to try and stop the run, stop Ollie Gordon. So I think they'll dare Maealiuaki to throw it. I don't know that he has as good a game as he had this past weekend, but I think he gets over the 250 mark.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I almost went higher on the number just to test it, but I felt like 250 was a good number. I think that could be a spot because I do think they'll try to maybe run the ball a little bit more. But I'm with you that Colorado also saw what Ollie Gordon did, even though everybody around here is like, hey, did you see what Smith did? Football-wise, you're like, oh, Ollie Gordon just ran for 150, whatever, and we got to stop it.
Yeah, everybody around here was like, the forward pass.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's 1924 again or something. So, all right, moving on. Brennan Presley, we had a very interesting note that Sean McGuire shared with us today. Has a chance to go over 1,000 yards, all-purpose yards, for the 4th straight year. Hasn't been done since Travis Etienne at Clemson. And his last year was 2020, which props to him for getting there in the COVID-shortened season.
Yeah.
But a really impressive stat for him. I already had this on the list, and I went with catches because that's obviously been the number we've been focused on. He's at 307 for his career now, which, first guy to go for 300, obviously, since he's already the first, has more than anybody in the program. But the number is 10 catches for Brennan Presley this week. He added, it did not feel like he had 10 catches.
No,
That's last week. That's how weird it's gotten with Brennan. It's just like, yeah, he caught a bunch. I don't know.
Yeah, the plays I remember most about Brennan from Saturday's game were the jet counters that they kept running, which were technically passes.
Right.
I went looking for rushing yards, and I was like, wait, that was technically passes.
Yeah.
So, it's tough to say because now all of a sudden Rashad Owens and Dejon Stribling are in play when they sort of haven't been in play for much of the year. So it's hard for me to bet against Brennan Presley, but I think I'm going to go under just because now the ball seemingly is getting spread around a little bit more. But any records or anything he's on the table for at this point, let's just get those records because what else matters? So but I think I'm going to take the under officially. But it wouldn't surprise me if, a la Houston game last year, they're just force feeding Brennan Presley.
Right. I'm going to go over just because it feels like Travis Hunter is going to take away one of your outside guys pretty regularly. So I think they're going to end up trying to find some ways to attack the middle of the field, and that's obviously going to be Brennan. So I'm going to go over the 10 there. Last question here in the first part of the Stone Cold Six Pack is on Travis Hunter. But just a real quick comment from you. How impressive is it what this kid is doing?
Yeah, I think it's super impressive. I've heard people argue like, well, I'm not sure he's the best receiver in the country nor the best corner in the country, so should he really be winning the Heisman? But just the fact that nobody's done this in a long time, the fact that Deion and his staff have allowed him to do this, so obviously that was probably a big part of them getting him in the first place, was that they said, hey, you can play both ways.
Right.
It's just crazy that we've seen Oklahoma State deal with a lot of injuries this season, and those are guys playing one way. So I can only imagine what it's been like to play two ways and to be a main focal point of the offense. Not that just that he's a piece of the offense; he's a focal point of the offense. Gundy said today, we need to know where he is at all times. So that's super impressive. Yeah, it's just been it's incredible. I think in a year that college football's been so upside down, I think the perfect Heisman Trophy winner would be some guy who's played both ways.
Yeah, I agree, and I vote in the Biletnikoff Award, and it's been a real challenge to we're narrowing it down to 3 right now from 10 to 3, and Hunter obviously made my top 10 a couple of weeks ago or whenever it was. Getting it down to 3 is really difficult. How figuring out how you measure him and what he's doing. His numbers are really good, so you can make a case for him. But it's like, is he the best receiver in the country? I don't know that he is, but I can't say that he doesn't deserve to be in the top 3.
Yeah.
And but it also feels weird because I'm like, he absolutely would get my Heisman vote if I had one, which I don't. He would absolutely get my Heisman vote, but I'm not sure if I would give him the Biletnikoff. It feels weird to say that, but that's just kind of the way things are right now with what he's doing and the uniqueness of it. So with that said, round 3 in the Stone Cloud Six-Pack, over or under combined interceptions and touchdowns for two-way player Travis Hunter. 1.5 is the number. Over or under?
So you're a little worried because it's a true freshman quarterback.
Right.
Is he going to be, maybe Oklahoma State will just say, hey, we're not looking his way. I don't know. But OSU's defense is so. I'm taking the over because if anything, I think he could do it on the offensive end and score 2 touchdowns.
Right, yeah.
And then that's not even taking into account what could happen defensively. So I think I'm taking the over, but I think it is a super interesting prompt.
Had I gone 2.5, which way would you have gone?
Man.
I still would have leaned over just because.
Yeah, I think there's a chance that they just try to get, because again, OSU's defense is not good.
Yeah.
So I think there's a chance with the Heisman, with all that stuff, that they try to really get him the ball, that they try to really secure this, because they're probably going to win this game anyway, so might as well get this kid the Heisman and the thing. So, yeah, I could see, I think I might still lean the over, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think I would still lean over.
I almost went 2.5. Probably should have. Because I'm over on both as well. So, I'm looking forward to seeing this kid, and obviously, it's going to be his last game at Folsom Field, unless they end up with a playoff game there. I guess is a possibility. But
he's bigger than whenever I see him without his helmet on, he's I'm like, oh, he's a stereotypical corner. But whenever I kind of see him out there, I'm like, oh, he's bigger than a lot of these guys that he's going up against.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. It'll just kind of be cool watching him play against Dejon Stribling, watching him play against Corey Black. That's just kind of cool that we've spent this whole season, these past couple of seasons, following these guys around, and all of a sudden they're playing basically a celebrity out there.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Could be the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
Or should or might. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I looked at 2 different mock drafts because I was writing something on what Gundy said, and one of them had Travis as the number 1 pick. One of them had Shedeur as the number 1 pick. So I was like, okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're gonna probably see the number 1 draft pick on Saturday or on Friday, no matter what. All right, well, with that brings us to draft time here on the Stone Cloud 6-pack. 3 rounds, of course, shaking things up a little bit this week. Thanksgiving dinner is the topic, but we're going with some categories for our round-by-round picks. Round 1 is going to be a side dish. Round 2 is going to be a dessert. Round 3 will be a wild card. You can choose anything you want. Okay. I threw out meats because it's pretty much either turkey or ham, and if you had drafted turkey, I would have had to draft ham, and then I didn't really want to draft ham, so just to play it safe,
no meats.
Yeah, you can choose a meat as your wild card if you
just
so
don't
choose.
have to choose a meat.
But you're not required
Okay.
to select a meat, and I will not be selecting one. Honestly, my plate at Thanksgiving is going to have a couple little slivers of turkey and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, with that, the first round of the Thanksgiving dinner draft is yours, Marshall Scott.
So it's a side, first round.
First round side, yes.
I'm going with dressing. I'm honestly not totally. I know the difference between stuffing and dressing and how they're prepared, but I don't know that whenever they hit my plate, I totally know the difference.
Right. No.
But I think whenever I'm shoveling stuff into my plate, my mom's usually telling me, "Wow, you really like this dressing." So so with that, I think I'm going with dressing.
Okay.
And I'll put anything on top of it. I'm not a big cranberry guy, but I'll dabble. But probably just gravy. Just gravy, just bits of meat that find its way over there.
Right.
My plate, I know some people don't like when their food touches each other. My Thanksgiving plate is almost a gumbo of sorts.
Right.
So I'm gonna go with dressing for my plate.
Yeah, there's been times that I've taken a scoop of something and there was another scoop of something else underneath it. I had no idea. It's all delicious. I don't care. I'm with. That's a fantastic way to start this draft because not only is it a staple, it's something that you're only going to get at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's big. And I don't. Why don't we just eat this every so often? It's so good.
It is. It absolutely is. And that's part of the reason why I nixed the meats from the list. 80% of the year, I've got some ham or some turkey in my fridge. I need all the other stuff that comes with Thanksgiving. So, with that, my side choice is going to be a hash brown casserole.
Okay.
It's very popular in my family and adjacent to my family. I'm not real picky about necessarily how they're done. I've had a variety of different versions. Basically, if you give me something that has potatoes and cheese, I'm probably going to enjoy it and probably going to go back for more. Yeah. So that's where I like to go. One member of my family likes to put cornflakes over the top, and adds an interesting texture to it. Not good or bad, but it's different, and again, the potatoes and the cheese, it's all going down. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's crazy that potatoes at one point in like Irish history or whatever, we looked at the poor man's food, and it's like
Right.
I don't think there's anything you can do with a potato that I'm not gonna enjoy it.
Same.
So
Same.
Yeah, I think that's a solid pick.
All right. The
I think you should get the first dessert pick, because if
Oh,
not,
really?
if not, then I'm getting the first.
listen,
selection of everything.
I don't mind.
Okay.
I've got a whole list of desserts that I can go to.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and let you go
Okay.
if you're okay with that.
Okay, mine's gonna be pumpkin pie. It's not that crazy. Similarly, it's something that I get one at Christmas as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty much the only one in my family. My mom makes 2 or 3 pies. The pumpkin pie is like solely made because I exist. I don't even know when I started eating it or why I started eating it, because it doesn't look that appealing. I will give people that. My wife would never try. My wife eats like a 5-year-old. Would never try pumpkin pie in her life. But yeah, it's just really good. I'm a no whipped cream kind of guy.
Okay.
I just like it the way that God intended it to be.
All right.
Love a good crust. Love pumpkin pie. Yeah, I think it's my favorite pie. I've started dabbling in apple a little bit more lately.
Okay.
But man, it's hard to beat a good pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving for me.
Nothing at all wrong with that. It's not one of my go-tos, but I respect it. It's a very versatile dessert. I had an uncle who had a theory that this time of year you had all the pumpkin pies available in the store, and then you got past Thanksgiving, and the store would just go back and change the label to sweet potato pie for Christmas time, because he says they're basically the same. I can't attest to that. I have no idea where he came up with that.
I've never had a sweet potato pie, but I'm interested.
Yeah.
I think I'm interested.
Right? All right, with that, this is really the toughest pick for me. Number one, I love dessert of all kinds in general. Number two, I have one dessert in particular that is not a real popular dessert, but it's my favorite by far, not even close. I'm not going to choose it. I'm going to leave it off the table because it's not a common thing among everyone. It's called cherry cream cheese pie. So it's a graham cracker pie crust, cream cheese, and then cherry pie filling over the top. And it's got some other, like some lemon juice and some other things mixed in to bring out the flavor. It's not baked, so it's weird calling it a pie.
Yeah.
But it's fantastic. I usually get one birthday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, so that's October, November, December, and so I have to. Anyway, it's a long story about all the weight that I gained between my birthday and the end of the year. But I'm not going to select that one. I'm going to leave that one to the side, and I'm going to go with the one that you just mentioned, apple pie.
Pie's good.
It's always solid. It's you can do all sorts of different things with like some crumble on the top or whatever. But as long as you cook it right, it's fantastic. I always go back to the apple pie. When I got married several years ago, instead of doing a groom's cake, I had my stepmom do groom's pies. They were apple pies. She did little tiny ones, so little individual ones for everybody, rather than going with the groom's cake. It was a big hit, and I know why. It's because apple pie is delicious.
Yeah, an issue I have with desserts on Thanksgiving is, again, nobody really eats the pumpkin pie. So there's a whole pumpkin pie for me.
That's a good play.
So after
right
I eat it, it's like I'm passed out somewhere, and I don't get to really divulge into the rest of the pies. But yeah, I have lately looked at apple pies, given them some time of day, and apple pie is pretty unbeatable. Definitely way different to a pumpkin pie. Kind of like you mentioned, pies can be, in England they make anything into a pie.
Oh yeah.
But it can be really different. But yeah, apple pie, hard to beat. Any cinnamony type of stuff in there as well. Man,
right?
Good stuff.
Yep, absolutely. All right, wild card round. You can go any direction you want. Any crazy thing, any normal thing, whatever is on your brain. Your final pick, Marshall Scott.
Okay, I think this is sort of boring. And again, I've kind of just picked dressing so far. I picked pumpkin pie. And I'm not going to take turkey, but I am going to take ham. But it's a very specific type of ham.
Okay.
It's like, so whenever you go to Walmart, it's in a purple, like metallic-y wrapping, brown sugar ham. So that in particular, it just reminds me of my childhood. It reminds me of everything. It's so delicious. I was always more ham than a turkey guy. I'll eat turkey now. I kind of appreciate what it represents in Thanksgiving. But yeah, that specific, the brown sugar, purple wrapped at Walmart ham. I've been in charge of making it the last 2 years, which has made me maybe enjoy it a little bit more, that I understand the process going into
right.
it. So yeah, that's what I'm going with. I got a very basic plate of dressing ham and pumpkin pie, but if that makes me basic, then
Hey,
I am basic.
Listen, I'm with you. That like these are staples of this holiday for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's all fantastic. My final pick is a little bit outside the box, but also a little bit basic at the same time. I'm going with leftovers.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't care what it is. I don't bother heating anything up.
Yeah. This is when the just
Oh,
just
absolutely.
everything.
Pile
at one time.
it all on. I don't. It doesn't matter to me. Whatever it is. The leftover round is when I'm more likely to go back for the turkey or the ham.
Yeah.
Because
Almost tastes better.
It absolutely. I would agree with that. So yeah, that's when I'm going back for maybe you get some turkey on like a roll as a little sandwich, whatever you want to do. All sorts of options, but I'm piling on everything. Maybe some things that I had to miss out on the first time around because I got there and my plate was full. Desserts, whatever.
Yeah.
Leftovers, I'm a huge fan, and it doesn't matter where I am. If I'm leaving a Thanksgiving, any situation, and they say, "Why don't you take a plate?" I'm taking a plate.
I'll take two if
Exactly.
we need to. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and going back to pumpkin pie, I prefer my pumpkin pie cold,
Okay.
out of the fridge.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that's just because, again, I'm the only one eating it, so I'll eat like 2 pieces during Thanksgiving, and then afterwards I'll have the rest of this pie.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, leftovers, elite. Back to my wife eating like a 5-year-old. She thinks leftovers are gross.
Right.
So that just, anything that gets left with us over Thanksgiving is going directly into my
all
mouth.
yours.
Yeah. So that's
Very nice.
It's, having the, do I have to eat at, certain places that she likes, Whataburger or this Mexican food place that she likes all the time?
Right.
Way too often, yes. But it's also a positive in that Thanksgiving, every leftover belongs to me.
That's
So,
right.
Yeah. Leftovers are as much of a staple to Thanksgiving as just like anything in Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Just mix it all together.
Yes.
I throw it in the microwave, pop it out. Some stuff is still cold because it warms at a different time than
Right,
but
yeah.
that doesn't matter at that point. So yeah.
Yeah.
Leftovers are perhaps the undisputed, less talked about MVP of Thanksgiving.
I fully agree, and I love it. And now, from what I understand, you're going to be hosting
Oh boy. Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Yes, so this will be our first. We bought a house in April. This is our first house. My brother had a pipe burst. He usually hosts Thanksgiving. My brother had a pipe burst, so he tore into one wall, and he was like, "Hey, I'm not hosting this year." So yeah, everybody's coming up to our house. Little worried about it, but I think it'll end up being a pretty fun day. I am in charge of cooking the turkey, which I've never had to do before. Hopes that my mother comes up, because my mother's talking about coming up the night before and kind of helping us with the cooking. Hope that happens, because if not, then all the Thanksgiving is riding on my shoulders, which
Right.
I'm not too confident in.
Yes, but I will say my one understanding of hosting. I've never hosted Thanksgiving at my house. Lots of leftovers.
Oh yeah, that's probably the case. Yeah, and anybody who doesn't want to take anything home just because I've got an aunt that lives in Texas. If she's
Right.
like, this isn't going to be good when I get back home.
Exactly.
My mom lives, Medill's basically Texas.
Right.
So yeah, maybe I'll get a little bit left over that people
Yeah.
don't want to take home.
Yeah,
That's a good thought.
All right. Well, good stuff. Have a good Thanksgiving, since I
as well.
don't think I'll see you between now and then, which feels weird because I see you basically every day.
I've seen you the last 3 days now.
Yeah, exactly. So, so have a good Thanksgiving. Thank you for joining me again, and thank you for watching this. Maybe you're watching this at Thanksgiving with your family. We hope. Anyway, we appreciate
Watch
you.
something else if you're watching.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
probably bad to say. It's your podcast.
It's
but
okay.
If you're watching this at Thanksgiving, watch something else.
It's all right. All good. We appreciate you, however or whenever you chose to join us here on the Cowboy Chronicle.